In a groundbreaking turn of events, Saudi Arabia has decided not to renew its 50-year agreement with the U.S. to export oil exclusively in U.S. dollars. This monumental shift marks the end of an era and signifies a major blow to the dollar's status as the world's reserve currency.
It's really not looking good for the US dollar. As you know, the US dollar has been one of the most powerful currencies for a long time, and countries use the US dollar to trade with one another. But it seems like now countries are finding a way to go past the US dollar. For example, Kenya just signed deals with Saudi Arabia and the UAE to buy oil with its local currency, which is the Kenyan shillings, instead of the United States dollars. And also Ghana is using gold to buy oil, and that is going to also impact the US dollar. And the recent news has been Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa talking about the plan they have to develop a new currency. Brazil and China have struck a deal to bypass the US dollar when paying for trade goods, which is a significant milestone in Beijing's long-term goal to establish the yuan as the dominant international currency.
Prince announced on June 9, 2024, that Saudi Arabia will now open its lucrative oil trade to other countries and currencies, reshaping global economic dynamics. For 5 decades, this signed arrangement ensured that Saudi oil was traded exclusively in U.S. dollars, bolstering the dollar's dominance as the global reserve currency. But now, Saudi Arabia is looking eastward, aligning itself more closely with China and the BRICS nations. Do you know that this shift could fundamentally alter the global economic landscape, and the implications are profound for the U.S. dollar, global trade, and political alliances, especially in Africa?
Why is it necessary for us to buy things from Djibouti and pay in dollars? Why? There is no reason. And we are not against the US dollar. We just want to trade much more freely. Let us pay in US dollars what we are buying from the US. But what we are buying from Djibouti, let's use local currency. Traders in our continent can trade in their goods and services, and the Africa Exim Bank will settle payments in local currency.
To understand the gravity of this shift, we need to delve into the history and mechanics of the petrodollar system. Back in the 1970s, the petrodollar system was established. This system meant that countries buying oil from Saudi Arabia had to pay in US dollars. This arrangement created a constant global demand for the dollar, making it the world's dominant currency. In exchange, the U.S. provided Saudi Arabia with military protection and economic aid. This symbiotic relationship strengthened the U.S. economy and bolstered Saudi security. However, the world has changed significantly since the 1970s. Renewable energy sources are on the rise, and the U.S. has become more energy independent, reducing its reliance on Middle Eastern oil. Additionally, geopolitical tensions have strained U.S.-Saudi relations. Issues like President Biden's critical stance on Saudi Arabia's human rights record, including the murder of journalist Jamal Khashoggi, have not helped matters. In contrast, China saw this and quickly shown a willingness to engage with Saudi Arabia without such criticisms, offering investment and technology as part of its Belt and Road initiative. By pivoting towards China and the BRICS nations, Saudi Arabia is making a strategic move to diversify its economic partnerships and reduce its reliance on the U.S. This shift aligns with Saudi Arabia's Vision 2030, an ambitious plan to modernize its economy and reduce its dependence on oil revenues. As part of this strategy, Saudi Arabia has been increasing its economic ties with China, which is now its largest trading partner. This includes deals to sell oil in yuan rather than dollars, a move that undermines the petrodollar system and could diminish the global demand for US dollars. The implications of this shift are vast. For the U.S., a reduced global demand for the dollar could lead to higher inflation and interest rates as the ability to finance its deficits diminishes. This could trigger economic instability reminiscent of the Great Depression, with severe consequences for global financial markets. For the BRICS nations, this shift provides an opportunity to challenge U.S. economic dominance and promote their own currencies and financial systems. In Africa, the impact of these changes could be significant.
Made innovative intentions and undertaken innovative strategy to ensure that we ease the burden of availability of dollar in our market. We just concluded last week an arrangement, a market-driven arrangement in our fuel sector that will see Kenya access all our fuel needs on a deferred 6-month credit. That will eliminate a demand of $500 million every month from this market. And therefore, for the people who work numbers, I am giving you free advice that those of you who are holding dollars, you surely might go into losses.
Many African nations have strong economic ties with both the U.S. and China, and shifts in global trade dynamics will influence these relationships. For instance, countries heavily reliant on U.S. aid and investment may find themselves vulnerable if U.S. economic power wanes. Conversely, nations with strong ties to China could benefit from increased Chinese investment and trade opportunities as Beijing seeks to expand its influence through initiatives like the Belt and Road. African economies could also see changes in their trade dynamics. If the dollar weakens, it could affect the pricing and stability of commodities, which are critical for many African economies. For example, countries that export oil, minerals, and agricultural products might experience volatility in commodity prices, affecting their revenues and economic stability. Furthermore, the potential for a new BRICS-backed currency could offer African nations an alternative to the dollar, reducing their exposure to U.S. economic fluctuations and potentially providing more stable and favorable trading conditions. This shift could empower African countries to diversify their economic partnerships and reduce their dependence on a single global currency. This monumental shift raises several intriguing questions. How will the U.S. respond to Saudi Arabia's pivot towards BRICS and China? What strategies will BRICS nations employ to establish a new global financial system? How will African economies navigate these changes in global trade and finance? What will be the long-term impact on global economic stability and political alliances? African nations might need to diversify their trade partners and explore new markets. But what does this mean for Africa, especially as Nigeria and Senegal just launched their new petrochemical industries? Let's dive into this major shift. For decades, African currencies have struggled against the US dollar. As of June 2024, the Nigerian naira is trading at over 700 naira to $1, and the South African rand is around 19 rand to $1. These depreciations make it more expensive for African countries to import goods, repay dollar-denominated debts, and maintain economic stability. Do we say Saudi Arabia's move could further destabilize these currencies if the demand for US dollars drops and the global financial system undergoes significant changes? On the other hand, there is need to strengthening regional trade agreements and enhancing economic cooperation within Africa. By doing so, African countries can reduce their reliance on any single global player and build a more resilient economic network. African economies should also work on strengthening their financial systems to better handle global economic fluctuations. This involves improving regulatory frameworks, enhancing transparency, and promoting financial inclusion. By building robust financial institutions, African nations can increase investor confidence and ensure economic stability. But wait, last week, U.S. Congressman Thomas Macy was on Tucker Carlson's podcast. He explained what's going on with the U.S. dollar really clearly. There aren't many politicians worth listening to in Washington, but Congressman Macy tells it like it is. He says other countries might stop using our dollars as their main money soon. When we put sanctions on Russia before, 70% of their business was in U.S. dollars. Now it's less than 20%. The U.S. government's fights with China over computer chips are doing the same thing. We don't want China to have our best computer chips, so we punish them. But that just makes China stronger. It's the same with money. If the U.S. keeps using money as a weapon, it could cause big problems. President Biden and France's leader just decided to use Russia's frozen money to give Ukraine more cash. This breaks international rules and shows how much Western leaders disagree with their own people about Ukraine. A new study shows 94% of Americans and 88% of Western Europeans think NATO countries should find a peaceful end to the war in Ukraine. But the leaders aren't doing that. Taking Russia's money in the U.S. could hurt us too. They might not buy our government's debt anymore. The U.S. has made the dollar into a weapon, and other countries are worried. China used to have more than $1 trillion in U.S. debt, but now they're trading it for gold. They know the U.S. might punish them too. This isn't just bad for other countries, it could hurt us in the long run. Congressman Macy's interview also talks about the BRICS group starting its own way to pay for things. This is a big deal. Vladimir Putin spoke about this at a forum in Russia. He says the world is changing, even if Western news says Russia is cut off. Lots of people from many countries went to that forum. Russia and other BRICS countries are planning new ways to do trade and use money that the U.S. can't control. If you don't just listen to Western news, you'll see most of the world wants to be free from the U.S. dollar. They want fair treatment and more countries to trade with. That's why Saudi Arabia might join BRICS. This could make the U.S. dollar less important, especially in industries like gold. As we consider the broader implications of Saudi Arabia's strategic pivot, it's essential to think about the potential long-term impact on global economic stability and political alliances. The U.S. will need to develop strategies to address the diminishing role of the petrodollar and maintain its global economic influence. This could involve strengthening economic ties with other regions, promoting innovation, and enhancing competitiveness. How the U.S. navigates this new landscape will shape the future of global economic dynamics. As for BRICS nations, they will likely continue to promote their currencies and financial systems to challenge U.S. economic dominance. This could involve creating new financial institutions, enhancing cooperation, and promoting trade in their currencies. How successful these efforts are will depend on their ability to build trust and stability within the global financial system. African economies will need to be proactive in adapting to these global shifts. This involves developing strategies to attract investment, diversify trade partners, and strengthen financial systems. By being strategic and forward-thinking, African nations can navigate these changes effectively and seize new opportunities for growth and development. Saudi Arabia's decision to end its petrodollar agreement with the U.S. marks a significant shift in global economic dynamics. This move has profound implications for the U.S. dollar, global trade, and political alliances, especially in Africa. By understanding these dynamics, we can better anticipate the challenges and opportunities that lie ahead in this evolving multipolar world. Thank you for watching today's video. If you found this discussion insightful, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more in-depth analyses of global economic trends. Stay tuned for more updates, and until next time, stay informed and engaged.
If you are still not following us, you are probably never going to see us again. But if you are, congrats. You are on a journey of discovery as we unlock the mysteries of the past.